I have tremendous respect for President Xi, but we have a trade deficit. It is the largest deficit of any country in the history of our world. It's out of control.
There is a twist in the ongoing trade war between the US and China. In the latest development, Beijing has banned the use of iPhones by government officials for any work-related matters.
Now, they say that there is opportunity in a crisis, and that holds true for relations among countries as well. India could benefit from the ongoing US-China trade war, and if you're wondering how, here's more.
We delve into the intricacies of global trade dynamics, economic trends, and industrial developments shaping our world today. In this segment, we explore the evolution of the US-China trade war, the transformative rise of Mexican manufacturing, and the complex interplay of factors influencing both economic policy and international relations. At the stroke of midnight on July 6, 2018, a brief addition was made to Chapter 99 of the Harmonized Tariff Schedule of the United States. This alteration subjected a variety of products, including aircraft pneumatic tires, parts for machines used in paper production, mineral mixing equipment, spherical roller bearings, lithium primary cells and batteries, as well as fuses, to a 25% import tax when imported from China to the US. This seemingly minor adjustment, affecting approximately $36 billion worth of goods, marked the commencement of what later became known as the US-China trade war. Following this initial move, subsequent rounds of tariffs were swiftly implemented. Within weeks, the Trump administration introduced a smaller set of tariffs covering around $16 billion worth of goods. Subsequently, in September, responding to Chinese countermeasures, a substantial package imposing 10% tariffs on approximately $200 billion worth of goods was announced. As tensions escalated, these tariffs were eventually raised to 25%. Consequently, items such as Chinese-made space heaters, which previously retailed for $48, now cost $60, prompting many U.S. distributors to seek alternative suppliers from non-tariffed countries to maintain competitive pricing. The overall impact of these tariffs resulted in an 8.5% reduction in trade from China to the U.S., and a significant 26.3% decline in the reverse direction. Furthermore, this trade dispute reshuffled the hierarchy of U.S. trading partners, with Canada claiming the second spot and Mexico emerging as the new largest trading partner, surpassing China. However, the trade war was not the sole factor in China's diminishing position. The emergence of subsequent challenges, notably the COVID-19 pandemic originating in Wuhan, further contributed to the shifting landscape of global trade dynamics. After headlines were dominated by the news of a mystery novel coronavirus in China, then by COVID's global spread, then by the world's descent into lockdown, then by breakneck vaccine development, then by the shot's wide-scale rollout across the developed world, summer 2021's headlines were dominated by supply chain chaos. Armed with lockdown savings but still facing barriers to spending them on restaurants, concerts, and plane tickets, American consumers started buying lots and lots of things, physical, real-world products. COVID, however, was still exerting influence, meaning dock workers and truck drivers in California were still getting sick, while their counterparts in China, Vietnam, or India were still largely unvaccinated or vaccinated with less effective shots, meaning stricter social distancing and lockdown restrictions were still in place, blunting shipping and manufacturing itself. The net effect was what made it to the headlines. Factories struggled to produce fast enough. Ships sat offshore for weeks waiting to get unloaded. American store shelves sat empty as stock simply could not come fast enough. By late 2022, the trans-Pacific capacity crunch had largely dissipated, supply and demand had equalized, and container rates had nearly returned to 2019 levels. But supply chains were never able to fully repair as Russia's invasion of Ukraine wreaked havoc on global trade. Sanctions cut off supply to key metals, energy, and food costs rose globally, and marine and air cargo was rerouted to avoid the belligerent nation. Today, China's economic landscape differs significantly from its past trajectory. While it may seem obvious, rapid economic growth had been the norm for decades until recently. However, the country has now entered a new phase. In a nutshell, one key factor is attributed to China's unparalleled economic rise: low-cost manufacturing. China became a hub where foreign companies could offshore production and reap substantial savings due to cheap labor. However, in many respects, the success of China's industrial sector also led to its downfall. Over 2 decades, the nation's GDP per capita skyrocketed tenfold, leading to significant improvements in quality of life. Major Chinese cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen began resembling international hubs like Tokyo, London, and New York, with a surge in luxury markets and the emergence of a substantial middle class enjoying lifestyles akin to those in developed nations. However, for foreign companies that had previously outsourced manufacturing to China, the rising purchasing power meant diminished returns. Wages increased, driving up manufacturing costs. The peak of foreign direct investment in China has passed, as multinational corporations seek lower-cost alternatives elsewhere. Nonetheless, China capitalized on the wealth generated during this period to foster the growth of indigenous businesses. Today, China's economic landscape differs significantly from its past trajectory. While it may seem obvious, rapid economic growth had been the norm for decades until recently. However, the country has now entered a new phase. In a nutshell, one key factor is attributed to China's unparalleled economic rise: low-cost manufacturing. China became a hub where foreign companies could offshore production and reap substantial savings due to cheap labor. However, in many respects, the success of China's industrial sector also led to its downfall. Over 2 decades, the nation's GDP per capita skyrocketed tenfold, leading to significant improvements in quality of life. Major Chinese cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen began resembling international hubs like Tokyo, London, and New York, with a surge in luxury markets and the emergence of a substantial middle class enjoying lifestyles akin to those in developed nations. However, for foreign companies that had previously outsourced manufacturing to China, the rising purchasing power meant diminished returns. Wages increased, driving up manufacturing costs. The peak of foreign direct investment in China has passed, as multinational corporations seek lower-cost alternatives elsewhere. Nonetheless, China capitalized on the wealth generated during this period to foster the growth of indigenous businesses. In the realm of logistics, the year 2023 is characterized by a consolidation of concerns. The vulnerabilities exposed by COVID-19 and the Ukraine conflict have sparked widespread apprehension that these events could be just the beginning. Consequently, there is a prevailing consensus that 2 main options exist: fortify the globalized supply chain by introducing more flexibility, such as ordering components earlier, maintaining larger stockpiles, and commencing manufacturing earlier. But this approach comes with a substantial and surprisingly significant cost. The alternative option gaining considerable traction is to mitigate risk by reducing the physical and political distance between manufacturers and markets. This alternative has garnered notable popularity. All that is required is an alternative, another developing country situated on the opposite side of the Pacific Ocean, where labor costs are low and there is a sizable workforce. Enter Mexico. However, from the perspective of manufacturers, Mexico has its drawbacks. Mexico ranks poorly in global indices. It stands at 128th out of 180 countries in the Corruption Perception Index and 60th out of 190 in the Ease of Doing Business rankings. Moreover, Mexico lacks major seaports. Its largest, the port of Manzanillo, is dwarfed by the likes of Los Angeles and Long Beach. Additionally, Mexico's geographical challenges, such as the rugged Sierra Madre mountain ranges, arid deserts, and dense forests, complicate transportation infrastructure development. Despite strides in infrastructure improvement, Mexico still trails behind China in this regard. However, Mexico possesses a distinct geographic advantage shared only with Canada. It shares a border with the world's largest economy. While the Rio Grande River may not be navigable, it hosts one of North America's most vital ports. The World Trade International Bridge, linking Texas with the Mexican state of Nuevo León, is a bustling commercial thoroughfare with 8 lanes accommodating over 6,000 northbound trucks daily since its construction in 2000. As of 2022, the inland port stands out as the leading American point of entry in terms of trade value. This increased significance and the growing traffic can largely be attributed to the advantages offered by manufacturing in northern Mexico, which China cannot match, namely speed, flexibility, and low cost. Located approximately 150 miles or 250 kilometers down Mexico's Highway 85, just outside the small city of Salinas, Victoria, is Hofusan Industrial Park, a 200-acre complex developed through a private Chinese-Mexican partnership aimed at attracting Chinese manufacturers. Despite being so new that satellite maps have yet to capture its development, Hofusan Industrial Park is a bold endeavor. The ambitious master plan aims to attract over 100 Chinese manufacturers to the gated park, alongside building a residential area for employees and providing various amenities, including Chinese restaurants, hotels, and hospitals. The goal is to create a miniature version of China where labor is stable and Chinese executives and workers can feel somewhat at home. Although much of the land still resembles a construction site 6 years into the project, progress is being made. Hisense, an electronics manufacturer, has already made the move, as have furniture makers like Kuka Home, Sunon, and Manhua. Additionally, neighboring Chinese manufacturers such as Faur, Skyish, Lizhong, Ascent and Bellenturf have also invested in the project. The incentives, particularly since the onset of the trade war, which has made manufacturing in Mexico more cost competitive, are too compelling to ignore. Despite the lack of completed amenities like restaurants, shops, and housing, Chinese companies are taking the leap both within and outside the confines of Hofusan Park. For example, the tech giant Lenovo has been operating manufacturing facilities just outside Monterrey for over 10 years. In 2022 alone, 44 different Asian companies established new manufacturing sites in Mexico, with 9 out of the 10 largest being owned by Chinese companies and 7 of them located in the state of Nuevo León. Zooming out from the state level, the upward trajectory of Chinese investment in Mexico is undeniably evident. Despite lingering concerns about security and infrastructure capabilities, the benefits of the deal are too enticing to delay. While the relocation of several dozen companies over a decade-plus period doesn't necessarily indicate Mexico's ascent as the world's factory or the decline of China's role, or signify the end of offshoring as we know it, the trend is significant. At present, the sample size is relatively small. However, the factors driving companies to move to Mexico remain, and the allure of manufacturing in Mexico extends beyond China. While China may be a newcomer to northern Mexico, other countries like Japan, South Korea, and the US are not. To industrial manufacturers, the region's value has been evident for decades. Even before the establishment of NAFTA, Mexico sought to leverage its lower labor costs and proximity to the US by implementing the maquiladora system, essentially tax-advantaged factories owned by foreign companies, aimed at reducing unemployment and attracting foreign investment. With the advent of free trade agreements, the number of these factories multiplied rapidly. Northern Mexico initially saw the influx of automotive companies such as KIA, Toyota, BMW, Ford, and Audi, followed by a diverse range of other industries including companies like Lego, Samsung, LG, 3M, and GE. Their collective arrival had a transformative effect on the Mexican economy. In a 2012 analysis of maquiladoras, it was found that there were 5,055 of these factories spread across Mexico, primarily concentrated in the northern regions. These factories employed over 2 million Mexican workers. The enduring value of these turnkey factories has helped to challenge perceptions of Mexican states as being too dangerous and unpredictable for business, instead presenting them as ideal locations ready to establish new manufacturing hubs for companies worldwide. Mexico has consistently offered compelling advantages in recent decades. Existing factories, relatively low wages compared to some Eastern developing countries, and the absence of tariffs are attractive propositions for businesses. Additionally, by operating in Mexico, companies benefit from a Western business environment with stronger patent and IP protection, reduced political risks, and minimized negative perceptions associated with offshoring. In essence, beyond the motivations driving Chinese manufacturers abroad, Mexico itself has become a highly attractive destination. Automotive and electronics manufacturers from around the globe have already established a strong presence in northern Mexico, significantly transforming the country's economy and creating a mutually beneficial relationship between Mexico and foreign companies that shows no signs of slowing down. China is simply the latest to recognize the profound appeal of Mexico. With its advantageous geography, abundant labor force, and growing demand, all the ingredients seem to be in place for an economic boom, except for one critical element: a comprehensive plan. President López Obrador and the federal government have been notably absent in the industrial sector, leaving much of the work to attract and incentivize the manufacturing industry to the state level. States like Nuevo León have long prioritized the development of their manufacturing industries by establishing industrial parks, offering financial incentives, and collaborating with incoming manufacturers, a strategy that has proven successful. Despite ranking 7th in population, Nuevo León ranks 3rd in GDP, surpassed only by Mexico City and its surrounding state. Consequently, the state's per capita GDP is comparable to that of countries like Malaysia or Greece, and Nuevo León is considered one of the safest Mexican states, comparable to many areas in the US. As a result, Monterrey has emerged as the country's second-largest center of wealth, boasting the tallest skyscraper in Latin America, one of the most modern metro systems in North America, and a vibrant array of upscale hotels and restaurants. Other northern Mexican states have followed suit, striving to develop their own manufacturing industries targeting the US market. However, the current leadership at the national level has failed to fully capitalize on this opportunity. President López Obrador has faced widespread criticism for his lack of focus on the country's industrial sector during what could be considered its most critical years. While his efforts to address crime are justified given the country's alarming homicide rate, he has been largely ineffective in mitigating it. The US is concerned about crime in Mexico due to its ripple effect. Republicans surveyed prior to the 2022 US midterms indicated that immigration was their second most pressing issue, following only the economy. Conservative Americans, in particular, are alarmed by the large number of migrants crossing the US-Mexico border through both official and unofficial channels, and a significant driver of this surge is violence. Delving deeper, poverty is a major driver of violence, a relationship that scholars have consistently highlighted, and poverty also fuels immigration. Therefore, by improving the economy, addressing violence, and reducing poverty, the volume of immigrants at the border could decrease. In the current landscape, Mexican manufacturing is not displacing American manufacturing. Rather, it is replacing Chinese manufacturing. This shift swaps a distant country with a questionable record on human rights and intellectual property for a culturally and politically aligned neighbor. This aligns with US global objectives, and the economic boost resulting from this phenomenon also addresses other American priorities. Overall, it forms a virtuous cycle, but it's regrettable that Mexican and American federal authorities have yet to fully acknowledge this. The manufacturing industry could offer solutions to the issues that officials on both sides claim to prioritize, but historically, both sides have tended to focus on treating symptoms rather than addressing root causes. Mexico already boasts a robust middle-income industrial economy with advantageous geography and a large pool of educated labor. Despite challenges such as inadequate infrastructure, pervasive violence, and a passive government, Mexico is beginning to experience the economic growth it deserves. However, this growth has largely occurred despite these constraints. Envisioning a future where Mexican manufacturing flourishes thanks to is enticing. Imagine if Mexico recognized its potential as strongly as China did 4 decades ago. Many pressing issues of today are highly politicized, and media organizations contribute to shaping this reality. Thank you for joining us to explore the evolving landscape of global trade dynamics, the rise of Mexican manufacturing, and the ongoing challenges faced by both Mexico and the United States underscore the complex interplay of economic, political, and social factors shaping our world today.